Hey everybody, I'm Declan Keefe from Co-Everything, and today we're going to be talking about real estate crowdfunding. We'll jump into it. What is crowdfunding? We're first going to go through that by talking about what it is not. You may have heard of crowdfunding of things like Kickstarter, where you put some money in and you get a t-shirt if they reach their goal. The crowdfunding we're talking about is not that kind. It's also not other online platforms where they raise money for donations for maybe a nonprofit. This is not what we're talking about. It's also not a person-to-person lending. You're not giving money directly to an individual. This is specifically what we're talking about is an equity crowdfund. You're investing actual money into a project, and in our case, we're talking about real estate development projects. And so you're investing money into the project, and then the project is going to use that money to do its development, and then if all goes well, then you would get a return on your investment from that project. So we're talking about this type of real estate equity crowdfund, none of these other ones. Okay? So just be clear about that. This is a confusing term because sometimes crowdfunding is used to describe some of these other models, but that's not what we're talking about today. This is how equity crowdfunding works. There's a developer who lists a project on some sort of a crowdfunding portal. These portals have to be accredited on a federal level that says they can take in and manage these investments. And once a developer puts a project onto this portal or platform online, then people are able to invest through the crowdfunding portal, and they would get their return through crowdfunding portal. But the developer, just as in any project, might have partners or debt lenders, and then ultimately all of those partners would come together to create a development project, but they would get some of their sources, so the money that's needed to cover the cost of development, from the crowd or from the community investors. So when the community invests, it goes into the portal, and then the portal will distribute it to the development project. The project will then use it to develop whatever it's developing, and then just as the other partners will get paid back from the development project's success, so too would the community investors. How could you invest? So there's generally two different categories to determine how much you could invest in an equity crowdfund project. And that's determined by whether you're an accredited or you're an unaccredited investor. Accreditation essentially just means that you make $200,000 income a year, or you have a net worth of over $1 million. If you fall underneath that, then you would fall into the unaccredited investor category. And what's unique about the regulation crowdfund that we're talking about is that it's one of the regulations on a federal level that allows for unaccredited investors to invest. A lot of regulations actually don't even allow you to invest at all, or for investors to even advertise an investment to you unless you are an accredited investor or make $200,000 or have $1 million of net worth. So this is the unique opportunity within crowdfund, is that it's open to people who have a lower income or lower net worth. So within the unaccredited investor category, if your income or your net worth is less than $107,000, then you can invest the greater of $2,200, or 5% of the greater of your income or your net worth. So another way to look at this is, if you make $50,000 a year, then you could take 5% of your $50,000, which would be $2,500, and you could invest $2,500 in crowdfunding projects that are listed on crowdfunding platforms in a single year. If you make less than, let's say, $45,000 per year in income, and you don't have a net worth greater than $45,000, then you can still invest $2,200. That's what anyone who's less than $45,000 per year. So that's generally how that works. Another step within the unaccredited investor category is if your income or your net worth are greater than $107,000, but still less than the $200,000 required for an accredited investor, then you can invest 10% of the greater of your income or net worth up to $107,000. So that's just another category within the unaccredited. For accredited investors, if your income is greater than $200,000 or you have a net worth of over $1 million, or in this case, you're a general partner or an executive officer or director for the issuer of the security, which means the actual company that is putting out the equity crowdfund, then you can invest however much you want. They're not putting any limitations on the amount that you could actually invest if you're an accredited investor. So this again is for regulation crowdfund specific investments. So why do we think that regulation crowdfund is valuable enough to be spending time specifically talking about this security exemption? And when I say security exemption, really what I just mean is that it allows for a developer to advertise an investment to certain categories of people, and those people can invest certain amounts of money based on the securities regulation. And that's what we're talking about. Regulation crowdfund is a securities regulation that allows developers or businesses to list their investment opportunity and investors to invest in it. So why do we think it's valuable? We'll go through a few different reasons why. The lower investment minimums, often with investment projects, because they're so typically created for the accredited investor, the actual lowest amount that you can invest is often in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And with regulation crowdfund, we can actually lower that way down to $1,000 or $2,000 so that people who don't have the income or the net worth that's over $1 million can still have the opportunity to invest into a project. And we think this is particularly exciting within real estate because real estate investment opportunities, as we know, often provide long-term or intergenerational wealth building, which if the investment minimums are so high, then you'd never be able to invest in real estate. We also think that it's a great opportunity because regulation crowdfunds often really rely on the ground work to get people interested in the opportunity. So while a crowdfund, when listed on a portal, technically is open to anyone across the whole country, what we've seen in the past is that really the investors primarily are those who are local, who care about the project because it's in their neighborhood or they know the developer. And we think this is a really great way for investments to be going, particularly for real estate. And crowdfund allows for this. For some people, they want to be owning the asset of real estate, but they can't afford the down payment for home ownership, or they don't want to own a home because they're moving all the time, or for whatever reason it doesn't make sense for them to own a home. There's an opportunity to actually invest and own real estate without being a homeowner, and this crowdfund with the lower minimums allows for that too. We also think it's a good way for those who maybe don't have as much experience investing to learn about investing through a crowdfund, especially through real estate. So things like this course we think are a good thing to go along with equity crowdfunds so that people can learn about what goes on in real estate, what goes on in investment, and then they can make an educated investment in a local opportunity. And then lastly, when you invest in a project, especially a local project, you feel the ownership, not just the financial potential return on that investment, but you actually have the connection to other investors in your community. And when you pass that building, you can say, hey, I actually own a piece of that. And you might care a little bit more about your community or about that building or about the people who live there because you actually are an owner and a stakeholder in that project.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real Estate for All. We will see you in the next one.